Since according to my watch, it is time, we'll start. I think these are scheduled a minute apart, but, you know, we'll say that my watch is, 9:03 anyway, and we'll just take them. 221 is the first one on the list, I believe. And pretty much we're going to accede to the House's position of annual. There will be a discussion with Secretary of State on whether I need to put that, what we're looking at is a form, a much abbreviated form, re-registration form where they can copy down their name, they can copy down their voter ID number, and whatever else the secretary wants for re-registering, okay? Because that's the problem that I've always had as a moderator. When I do a purge, then the people have to go back through the line, and we've got all the rest of the statute lined up so that they only have to show, identity as long as they haven't changed their domicile, or if they're in a different ward, show identity and domicile. But if we can make it quicker for them to do it, that's what we need to do. And as long as probably somewhere in 221, I'll add that in there and then get you guys back together for, a couple of minutes just to make sure that you've read it. If that's acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll put that one on hold for a minute. 213 is the next one. We've had several requests for having a minor change to the amendment that I wrote. I think you all have a copy of 2798.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So I'm going to ask for two word changes. On the amendment, on line 4, at the very end of that sentence, we say legislative bodies. Legislative bodies don't hire people. It's on amendment number 2798, page 1, line 4. At the very end of line 4, we're talking about public employees who are appointed to the office by a chief executive or legislative body. The legislative body doesn't appoint people, the governing body does. So I'd like to change the word legislative body to governing body, because select boards, they're the people who hire, not the town meeting hires, it doesn't hire anybody. The other change I want to ask for is in the original bill, as amended by the House. I gotta find my page again. There was a line that said, I lost my page.
In several places, you say measure.
Yeah, so where it says the word measure on line 14 of the House amended bill, I'd like to change that to warrant article, because a measure is not defined in our statute anywhere, but warrant articles are defined. So they can't go and actively and publicly make statements in favor of warrant articles that are before the voter. So I'd like to change that word where measure is, change it to warrant article.
And
Yes, it actually ends up
Sorry, I
being
couldn't find my
9:15.
copy.
No, it's all good.
line 15 on page 1.
I just want to point out that measure is the language that's in the statute now. So long as the legislative intent is, this is I don't know, grammatical change, I don't want to say grammatical is not the right term, but if it's a tightening, if it's not changing the meaning of the statute, it's just bringing the language up to the current terms that was intended for use. Okay.
So, yeah, why not?
All right. And I don't think,
Thank you, Chairman. So I appreciate the changes. I do think they help tighten up the language of 340, but unfortunately, I think many concerns still remain with this bill, which is why the Senate position, was not to bring this forward. And I'd like to hold the Senate position. There were some points raised in hearing that I'd just like to remind us of. The first being that I think the origin of this bill, which was a survey sent out by the Goffstown Library, or an email sent out by the Goffstown Library, showed that our current law really works the way it's supposed to, which is allowing our public employees to fulfill their official duties, make sure that they're you know, able to use their expertise and participate in decisions that affect them, like, you know, should their classrooms be heated, and how is the school being administered, and various things that that our teachers and public employees, you know, need to participate in. For example, can our police chief come and talk about security, even though there are budget-related impacts to security? So I think some of these things that Centerling has proposed are favorable changes, but I guess my concern still remains, do we need this bill at all, or is this going to have a chilling effect on our public employees? And I think another example is, you know, what if you're in civics class and a current election comes up, you know, and you want to talk to your students about the election and sort of help them learn about democracy? Are you crossing a line? I mean, I think it's pretty ambiguous still in this language. So again, I'd like us to hold the Senate position on this and sort of take out the language of what was HB 340 out of 213. While I appreciate the senator's efforts, again, I just think this is going to put a lot of our public safety employees, a lot of our teachers that we rely on every day in a really tough position. So I would appreciate support for that. Thank you.
Okay, your position is noted. Any other comments? Polling centers, I've got 2 in favor, 1 against, is that? And House?
The House accepts the proposal.
Okay, and with the Senate rules, I can do this and then have you sign off. So if there's no objection, we'll set
So-
that one aside and we'll go to 218.
Sorry, Chairman, I have further comments on the bill as a whole.
Oh. Well, all right, well, we'll certainly take your comments.
All right, thank you. You know, those comments were with respect to language that was 340. As relates to SB 213, you know, this committee just sat through making changes to that effectuate SB 287 with significant changes from the Senate position, which essentially infringe on the right to vote via absentee ballot because they require us to not only provide the evidence we did during registration, but to provide that evidence again simply in order to cast our absentee ballot. So at this point, I think 213 really is unnecessary as a whole because unfortunately we've already passed language that is even more restrictive. And so I just don't see the need for this bill in its entirety. And for the reasons I've already raised on 340 and for the reasons about SB 213. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Lang, did you change your position?
Nope.
I haven't changed mine. Any of the House members change their position? All right, thank you very much. And we'll go to 218. I did not have an amendment written to 218 because I wanted to talk about the things. Last time we were together on page 1, line 24, we're going to add the word applicable. And on page 2, line 23, we're going to add that same word in there. To get to an agreement on adding back the language that the Senate put in, it looks to me like we can take out section 5 and we get to where the House wants to be. That is the taking out the pre-processing. The only question I have, and I have not looked into it yet, is section 6. I think that needs to stay in there, but I do want to check with the Secretary of State on that. This is the Senate version. Section 5 starts on the bottom of page 3, goes on to page 4, and section 6 is that next one. And like I said, I think 6 has to come out also because you don't want to repeal it because now you do have the outer envelopes and there are provisions in there that allows the moderator to do things. So 5 and 6 would come out. We'd add those 2 words, and I think that's what we're proposing. And if you want time to think about it, we can do that.
just give us a hot second. I don't think we need a break. I think we're, give me a second.
Yeah. Which one, are you on this one?
I'm on this one.
You understand what we're doing?
So you want to, sorry, Chair, just while they're discussing, to restate, you want to remove lines 26 through 29 of the bill
You
Well-
had,
amended by the
If you go
House?
by section 5 and section 6,
yeah, he's using the as introduced language.
Oh, you're using it as introduced.
Yes.
I'm on as amended by the House. Okay, let me
Right.
get to that version.
the House canned our stuff, and we're gonna put it back.
Auditors may pre-process.
The House's position was election day is election day, and that's when things should happen. And that's why the pre-processing was first put in during the COVID stuff.
Yep,
We've removed some of the things during COVID.
Yeah.
If you had an objection
yep,
to one of these absentee ballots, you had to do that at the pre-processing.
Yep.
And not during election day. That didn't sit well with me.
yep.
I put this in here at the request of some of the clerks, but
Yep.
to get it through, section 5 and section 6 would go away. We'd add it back in there and go for it.
Okay, and then you made a reference to adding applicable somewhere as well.
And that's back in the House version.
Okay,
That's page 1, line 24. And
I have that.
the same change on page 2, line 23.
Okay, page 2, line 2.
And that's so that there is, that you're, because if you're registered already in that ward, then you only need to prove identity. If you're not and you're registered somewhere else in the state, then you have to prove identity and domicile, and then all three if you are. So applicable makes it clear that you don't have to prove all three to do any of those things.
Okay, so I do think the changes to add back in section 5 and 6 from the Senate version are favorable. I support applicable. Unfortunately, I still don't support the bill, but I think those are improvements.
All right.
Mr. Chair, can the House get just 10 minutes just to review
Absolutely.
changes? I'm sorry, we're just
Yeah.
trying to do it on the fly. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We will be back in 10 minutes. I'm going to go up to the Secretary of State's office and I'll be back.
Okay.
We are back. I'd like to take up 221 first because I think that'll be the quickest. All right. And on the bottom of the House version, we would add a Romans 7 that would say, and because OLS often changes my words slightly, words to the effect that the Secretary of State shall develop the forms necessary for registration of a voter removed from the list by the procedure above. Okay?
Seems very reasonable.
Senate position? In abstention, would you want to say anything before we?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to say something. While I understand that that change is probably constructive, I really don't see the need for the bill as a whole. We took a position on this last year. We took a Senate position on this. And we know that when voter rolls are purged unnecessarily often, it results in people being denied the right to vote, especially in combination with HB 1569 that was passed last year, especially in combination with new restrictions to absentee voting that are going to be passed. So we don't want to see the voter rolls cleansed more often than they need to, or the data provides. And again, I will remind you, there's always the alternative of joining ERIC, which would keep our voter rolls clean without the need for this action. So I'm opposed to the bill, but appreciate your
objections
constructive
are
efforts.
noted. The Senate, 2 in favor, 1 against. House?
The House is agreeable.
concurs. All right. I will have that, and it'll be ready for you guys' signature. And now on to 218. And Senator Perkins Coker does want to say a couple words about 213 also as we go along. So let's do 218 first.
Okay.
All right. When last we left, we were going to add the 2 words. We were going to remove from the Senate's version sections 5 and 6 because I need to put back in the opening stuff. So those will be gone, and I believe that the House has additional things that they would like changed in the Senate version.
Yes, on page 3, we would like to strike the addition in line 23, errors identified during this process shall be processed as directed by the Secretary of State. While we appreciate the intent, the language is vague and broad, and we are apprehensive about turning over that much broad authority to the Secretary of State, and we'd rather see things codified in statute. So we'd like the language removed.
All right. And any of those errors can be brought to the supervisors of the checklist, and the proper procedure that's already in statute can take care of them. All right. Is there anyone that's confused about what we're doing on 218? All right. I will have the amendments written, and you guys will be notified when it's ready to sign. Senate's position is, all right, we got 3 yeses on this one. Okay. Excellent, excellent.
You,
All
do,
right.
you do not
The
have
House,
3 yeses
your
on this.
position?
The House is agreeable to the compromise.
Okay.
Okay, so Chair, are you bringing us back for this amendment, or?
No. It's,
Okay.
it should be simple enough the way we've done it. The 2 words, removing sections 5 and 6, and then that 1 sentence on page 3. You know, unless somebody objects, then you have to get back to me so that we can get whatever your objection is. And Senator Perkins Coker, I do want to give you an opportunity to speak on 213.
Thank you. Well, and I also want to note on 218, I'm not supporting the bill as amended. And, you know, I just think we've seen that the result of these continuing tightenings on our right to vote, which again is safe and secure here in New Hampshire, has led to over 100 voters being turned away from the polls. We know that some of these voters are a mom with 2 kids. We know that some of these voters that have been turned away are veterans. We know they're elderly voters. We know these are people who voted in every election since they were able to vote. So there's been no incidents to further tighten these rules. There's no reason to make it harder for people to vote. And so in combination with 287 that was passed, you know, SB 213 and 218 are just going to make it harder. You know, our disability advocates have also sounded the alarm on these. So the biggest danger to our elections is not fraud. It is our people who have the right to vote being turned away.
Okay.
So that's my position on 218. On 213, I did want to just raise a constructive comment. I know that we adjourned that committee of conference, but since we have our members here, on the language that we adopted in the amendment under F, the way it reads as adopted, it says public employees who are appointed to the office by the chief executive or governing body of the public employer from providing factual information. And then it continues, in response to requests from the public concerning their official function. The request is to remove that this information needs to be provided in response to a request. You know, these public employees are experts in their field. They're trying to keep us safe. They're trying to teach our children. If they have a position on something that is well within their official function, then we want their expertise at the table. And hearing from them and them advocating for what makes sense in order to, again, keep us safe or educate our children should be something that we welcome and are open to. So I would just like to remove the language in response to requests from the public from section F.
Anyone else want to do that? Seeing none, thank you for your comment. And unless there's something else anybody has, we are adjourned.
Thank you.